Good evening, Fodder fans. Yes, do not adjust your set. I am hosting the Easy Talk this evening. And this evening, no doubt we did allude to it in a couple of videos during the week, that this is going to be a rather special edition. It's an Easy Talk special edition. It's Black Lives Matter edition. And no doubt I've got some brilliant guests who can give me their sides on how forward we're going to become after what's happened in the States and what's going to be happening in the UK. We have got IG in the house. Thank you, IG. And we have got Tel, the master. And yes, it's Raz. And of course, normally at this point, I'd be sat back watching Alex hosting this program, but I'm in the hot seat, as it were, and it is a rather emotive and challenging aspect. So, without further more to do, we're not going to titles. We're gonna go straight into our first question. So the first question is the first black player you guys supported either at the club or globally. So I angled this question to Terry. Tez, who is the first black player that you supported?
I think the first one I really noticed, there was a few that came through at the same time in the Brazil national team. And there was definitely Pele. There was another guy called Garincha, who was a right winger and incredibly fast. So those two would have stood out, but very quickly followed by Eusebio, who was who played for, I guess he was Portuguese.
Yeah,
but a black.
Benfica, the team he played for.
Yeah,
the club he played. Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of made a big breakthrough, those black players. But I don't remember any query about their colour. You know, Pele was whatever colour he was, and so was Garincha. I mean, people just raved about Pele. I think he first appeared on the scene before my time in 1958, the World Cup there as a teenager. I was lucky enough to see him live in New York in 1976. And then he came to visit Arsenal when he was retired, and he kind of walked there in the old Highbury Stadium. He walked the four corners of the pitch at half time and waved to all the fans. And even though he was probably in his late 30s, the fans were shouting, "Sign him up."
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember that. Sign him up. So, and he was waving away. So, I mean, the good news is I don't remember any bad vibes about what colour people were. We can relate more stories later on of how it started to be. But no, it was all right. It was fine. People didn't mind where people came from, or and Brazil were always the shining light in terms of a fantastic. I mean, if any team that the English people didn't like was Argentina.
Yeah, there's a bit of a murky past with the Argentina.
And most of those are white guys, I think, but so they definitely Pele and Garincha, but hotly followed by Eusebio, who was a lovely player.
IG, if I may ask you, it's of course because you're Asian. So, what black player or what ethnic player did you started to support, or was you aware of that kind of ethnicity about a black player or an Asian player?
For me, I think the biggest reason why I started loving Arsenal was Thierry Henry. I started watching him when he actually recently, I think 2003 or 2004 season, where I actually started watching him. I think he made me fall in love with the club. And not only that, I think there are many reasons why I started supporting Arsenal as well. The values and the way, we have a different class compared to the other teams during that stage of the Premier League development. But the best part was that, I watched Thierry Henry, I watched his class, and I never noticed his color. It never struck me. It never. And After that, there was Adebayo, there was Gervinho, there were lots of people. Eboué. I mean, these guys, Patrick Vieira. I mean, these kind of guys actually motivated me to support Arsenal. I till now, I watch any sort of football, whether I watch Serie A, whether I watch Bundesliga, whichever part of the world. If I watch football, I watch it for the pure entertainment and pure class and the way they. I mean, it's all about talent.
Mm.
We expect these players to show talent, and they expect appreciation if they do something for that badge, if they do something for Arsenal. I'm so sorry, Arsenal. You know that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it's just not about the color. And when I actually have come across, since I had to get prepared for this podcast, I actually
Mhm.
came across with a lot of posts which I'll be mentioning in the further part of the show.
Okay.
I am so disheartened with how the way things have been, and what black and other ethnicity players are facing, just because they are representing a club, sometimes by their own fans, sometimes by the
Mhm.
opposition fans. If they
Mhm.
miss a penalty, that happens. There are lots of things that happens that drives football, like missing a penalty, or especially a lot of things. But it's just that you keep your head up. You look back at what the team is all about, and you go on with that. And it's sad that people, even in 2020, are progressing but backwards. They still have the mindset of 1600s.
Okay. So I mean, for my experience, I remember Clyde Bess, and Clyde Bess was a player who played for West Ham. Now that's like early 70s. So I remember actually our father, Alex and I, um, my dad called me downstairs. I used to play out at the front in the streets, and he called me downstairs because he said to me, "There's a goal coming," and this was the 1970 World Cup where Brazil was playing against Italy, and it was Revellino's goal. And even now, I can see the pictures in the back of my mind, as it were, because it was just the way that Pele laid up that ball for Revellino to score, and the ball was like maybe about half an inch or so off the ground and right from the back of the net. And I thought, well, that's my team. I think we've got one of the guests coming. It's Andrew.
Hello, I'm ever so sorry I'm late, guys.
It's fine. It's
I
fine.
do apologise.
It's okay. Glad you can make it. Glad you can make it. I'm just sharing my experience of a black player. So first and foremost for me, I saw Clyde Bess. Then it was the Brazilian team, as you mentioned earlier, Terry, 1970s, and it seemed like it was that golden age. And then later on, I remember Viv Anderson. I remember the Cyril Regis, the West. I kind of like West Brom because they had it was like the 3 degrees. It was Baston. I did cover the fact that Brendan Baston played for Arsenal. And then there was Lloyd Cunningham, and Lloyd Cunningham was when he made his debut for England, he was a shining light, and then he went to Real Madrid, and unfortunately he passed away there. So for my family, for black fans as well of football, those were like our linchpins to the club. The only time that I can actually say that my cemented love for Arsenal was Charlie George. My brother and I met Charlie George I believe it was like last year, at his birthday last year, and to me it was nothing about colour. It was the fact that he scored a tremendous wicked goal that beat Liverpool, and to have my arm around my hero, that was it. There was nothing about colour at that time. It was all about us beating Liverpool. But the more mature and older that my brother and I became, we did look for role models because they were very far and few between. And then when Ian Wright and Rocky Roecastle and Michael, I've got his name now, Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, yeah, Michael Thomas. When those guys came in, Paul Davis as well, that kind of like cemented me with the fact that that's somebody that's the team. I love the Arsenal anyway, but to see the black players there making it and having that grit and determination, that's what cemented it for me.
Yeah, I'm a very good friend of a guy that is best mates with Chris White. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I remember Chris White. Yeah.
Chris White used to live right near the Arsenal Stadium. Well, so did I. And I'd always go past the place. There were a lot of kids in his family. And his mum would always be coming out of that gate, going down Blackstock Road shopping. Anyway, I got this, somebody contacted me, FaceTime or something, this mate of mine, it's a steward, but he was a kid I taught years ago. And he said, he said, I'm in a pizza restaurant with Chris White. Would you like to talk to him? So Chris White came on. Of course, he went in Highbury Grove, didn't he?
Yes.
Our old.
Yes.
And Chris, I'll never forget your poor mum going out every day out that gate, going off down Blackstock Road. And we had a great laugh, you know. And he's a regular guy, very nice fella, still obviously supports the Arsenal. So, yeah, I mean, we've been a good club in terms of just bringing people through regardless of their colour, ethnic, anything like that, you know. Yeah.
Andrew, if I can bring you in now. So who was your first black player that you supported, either at the club or globally?
There's only one for me, really, that I can say that I literally just fell in love with, and, you know, it really cemented my love for all things Arsenal, all things, you know, everything to do with the club, and that's David Roecastle initially. I just absolutely loved the guy, and it wasn't just him, the whole team really at that time, around the mid '80s.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic seeing all of these homegrown players coming through, and the whole group, and then obviously when they were joined by Ian Wright as well, it was just fantastic. It was just so exciting to watch. But David Roecastle was my absolute hero, because he was just as strong as an ox. He had all the skill in the world, and it was exciting to watch. And at the time, I believed, when I was a little kid, that John Barnes was the best player in the world, you know, at Liverpool. But I absolutely hated him because of he used to destroy us every time, you know. But he was incredible, and he literally scared me every time we played them, because I just thought, what's he going to do to us today? Because there didn't seem to be anything he couldn't do with the football, and I was so enamoured with him. But like I said, at the same time, I hated him because I was so jealous of Liverpool at the time. But David Roecastle was like our version of John Barnes, the way that he could sort of dribble the ball, you know, score these incredible goals, look magical on the ball. But at the same time, like I say, he was no pushover. He literally just was a fighter at the same time. You know, no one could get the ball off him. He was just so strong. So it was David Roecastle all through for me.
I've got two stories I can quickly relate. My brother and I, we was in Wood Green. I'm sure we've mentioned it quite a few of these podcasts, and we was in the tie rack. I think it was like tie rack in Wood Green, and in comes David Roecastle and Paul Davis.
Oh wow!
I had my back to them, and I turned round, and David Roecastle said to me, "Do you work here?" And I said, "No." I was just so stunned that you know, David Roecastle, and then they just walked out, and my brother and I just looked at each other and said, "That was David Roecastle." You know, we couldn't believe it. And it wasn't like I was supposed to chase after them for an autograph or anything. That was just a brilliant moment. And then the second moment, you talk about John Barnes. I was working for the BBC, and we was up in Liverpool to shoot Bread. Any of those who are old enough remember the sitcom Bread. And I was a training cameraman. And the Limehouse Hotel in Liverpool. No, actually, I think it's called the Moat House or Boat House Hotel. Anyway, the Liverpool team were about to go on their coach for their fixture, and I was standing. There was a bunch of kids in front of me, and across the way was John Barnes. And John Barnes looked at me, and I looked at him, and I thought, I could go over there and ask for his autograph, but that'd be the biggest betrayal because I'm an Arsenal fan. You know what I mean? But there was a respectful nod It was a respectful nod, you know, and it's something that I always keep with me, because he was at the time. He's one of those players that if he wanted to, he can take a game, by a scruff of the neck, and he can run it, you know. So, but as I said before, and the part of this segment pretty much is the fact that Alex did relate in one of his videos the fact that we didn't go to any of the matches because of the level of violence. It didn't stop a friend of mine, Richard Brown, who was an Arsenal fan, going when Arsenal played against Leeds United. But it was just the fact that we had it tough enough as it is, rather than having to like go looking for it, as it were.
Yeah.
So that's my first question.
Did you find more of trouble was outside the ground or inside the ground? Because did you feel safe inside the ground at Arsenal?
Well, I didn't go. Alex will hold this honour above me for as long as he lives now. Highbury Grove School played, I think it was against St. Aloysius, and they played at the ground. So my mum and I went, and he played there. He played two halves. He played in goal, and then he played as an outfield defender at second half, and a couple were shared. So I thought, well, that's it, you know, that's the ground, and I you know, I love it, but I wasn't really all that mad keen as I am now, you know. So I did go past by the stadium years later when we beat Parma in the Cup Winners' Cup final on that night, and I remember going to the town hall on quite a few occasions when we beat Man United, but no, we lost to Ipswich, but then we beat Man United, you know. So it was always the fact that you know what it's like. It's the fact that the ground's there, but you always think, oh, I'll go tomorrow. Now I live in South Wales, and I wish I can pop over there whenever I can. But I have had the opportunity to go to the Emirates, and it's not, obviously it's not the same as Highbury. You can still feel the vibes around Highbury. There's something romantic about Highbury. But digressing a little bit, no matter how many times I've gone past there, when I was a younger kid, we used to see all the National Fronts going past when they did their marches and everything. There used to be National Fronts at the gates of the school at Highbury Grove. So that was enough to dissuade you from actually going to a ground, because then you hear everything about Millwall and West Ham and Chelsea. But it's later years. There's always been I'm going to go to Highbury. Alex probably had gone more than I have, to be honest. But bumping into your heroes, bumping into Pele. Pele came past. He was a guest at Highbury, I think, in the early 80s when, you know, that film Escape to Victory was released. He was a guest at Highbury, and the car came past, and one of the guys from our school shouted that Pele was in the car, and we actually ran to the car, and Pele gave us 2 autographs, which we both got to this day. So that's my ultimate icon. But Charlie George for me, and then it would be Ian Wright and David Roecastle onwards.
Fantastic.
Okay. So, second question is about how has the inclusion of black and ethnic players been the positive in the Premier League? I'll aim that question to you, Andrew. How do you think that the inclusion of players have been?
Well, it made the Premier League in so many ways. I mean, in my point of view, the best player of all time in the Premier League is a black player, Thierry Henry. And it raised the standards around them because of the players having to raise their game. And we've heard the story. I mean, at the moment, I'm listening to the audio book version of the Romford Pele, the Ray Parlour story, and it's fantastic, by the way. And he stated, not just with Dennis Bergkamp, but you know, all the players that came in with Patrick Vieira, for example, and Thierry Henry and Gilberto Silva, that he realised he had to put his socks up and raise his game and raise the standards. It's not the same as it used to be when he first started breaking through. So without black and ethnic players in the Premier League, it wouldn't be the same. The standard just simply wouldn't be the same, because even with Arsene Wenger coming into the club in the same sort of way, in the way that he brought different managerial methodologies into the country and everything, the same it goes with the players who've been trained and brought up elsewhere, and without that, it just wouldn't be the same as far as I'm concerned.
IG, how do you feel the inclusion of black and ethnic players have been a positive in the Premier League?
I think there are a lot of it right now. Even if you're playing in the Premier League, if you're not a black or an ethnic player, I think it's always how you carry yourself. For a black player like Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, these guys have been epitome of actually serving the society. We know what Rashford did for the kids, overturned a government decision.
that's amazing.
Terry, I read all your tweets. I mean, you are a revolutionary by yourself as well. So I know you raise these kind of issues as well. And Rashford did, and he was a hero for me. Irrespective of he's doing that in England, wherever he is, but he's standing up for what is wrong. And so is Sterling. These guys know that if they are black or ethnic players, these guys have to carry themselves so much so that they have to do it for the future generations. Now, if you guys can give me 2 to 5 minutes, I would really like to tell you what 2019 has done for football in terms of racism.
Yeah.
If I may.
Certainly.
January 27th, racist chant mars Millwall's FA Cup win over Everton. March 18th, Chelsea lodged a formal complaint with UEFA over racist chanting aimed at Callum Hudson-Odoi during a Europa League game at Dynamo Kiev. And March 24th, a number of England's players are racially abused during a Euro 2020 qualifying win in Montenegro. April 2nd, Everton striker Moise Kean, who was then playing for Juventus, was abused by sections of the Cagliari support during a Serie A match. The teammate Leonardo Bonucci later said that Kean should take the 50-50 blame for the same, which was highly, it was really bad for a senior player like that to come out in open and actually blame the player himself. April 5th, England and Tottenham defender Danny Rose says he cannot wait for his career to be over due to racism. 2 days later, the EFL declares itself saddened, disappointed, and angered by numerous instances of alleged racist abuse at games. Derby, Wigan, and Northampton all reported abuse of their own players. April 8th, a day after, Watford striker Troy Deeney reports abuse on social media regarding racism. April 11th, a video of Chelsea fans singing a racist song at a Europa League game in Prague is condemned by the club, with 3 fans denied entry to the game. Arsenal also launched an investigation into their own fans after Napoli player Kalidou Koulibaly is allegedly abused during a Europa League tie. We all have been there. Our fans have also done this. April 12th, the League One game between Amiens and Dijon is suspended for several minutes as Amiens defender Prince Guano suffers abuse from the stands. April 13th, West Ham say they are disgusted by a video on social media of a group of fans singing an anti-Semitic song. April 15th, MK Dons and Tranmere condemn racist abuse of Dons forward Shuks Aneke on social media. April 17th, Manchester United's Ashley Young is abused on Twitter after his side go out of the Champions League to Barcelona. A day afterwards, leading players undertake a 24-hour social media boycott. Now, even Alex spoke about this. April 26th, UEFA orders Montenegro to play June's Euro 2020 qualifiers with Kosovo behind closed doors as a result of the racism from the England game in March. August 8th, as the new season begins, Kick It Out condemns a number of incidents from the opening weekend with Fulham defender Cyrus Christie alleging his sister was hit and racially abused. August 14th, Chelsea's Tammy Abraham is targeted online after missing a penalty in a Super Cup shootout. Manager Frank Lampard says he is disgusted with a so-called Chelsea fan. August 18th, Reading's UK Yaku Mite is abused for missing a penalty. August 19th, Manchester United condemn racist abuse aimed at Paul Labile Pogba after he misses a penalty. Teammate Marcus Rashford says, if you attack him, you attack us all. September 2nd, Inter Milan's Romelu Lukaku is abused at Cagliari, though the club deny his accusation. September 4th, Twitter say it has taken down 700 examples of hateful conduct in the last 2 weeks regarding football fans. September 23rd, a 43-year-old man is arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offense during Hartlepool's match against Dover. October 7th, Aston Villa condemns social media footage of fans chanting a racist song which references their own players. their own players. October 14th, England's Euro 2020 qualifier in Bulgaria is stopped twice due to racist abuse from home supporters. And October 19th, the FA Cup qualifier between Haringey and Yeovil is abandoned after allegations that a Haringey player was abused. The player walked off the pitch after 64 minutes. October 20, Hearts and Bristol City open investigations following allegations of abuse from their fans. October 21st, a day afterwards, Manchester United eject a fan for alleged racist abuse during a Premier League game against Liverpool. October 29th, Bulgaria are ordered to play 2 matches behind closed doors, one suspended for 2 years and fined £65,000 for the abuse of England's players on October 14th. November 3, Brescia's Mario Balotelli kicks the ball into the stands in protest at abuse suffered during a game with Verona. November 16th, Sweden striker Alexander Isak was subjected to racist abuse by Romanian fans. December 5th, Italian daily newspaper Corriere dello Sport, this was really famous, is accused of fueling Lukaku and Roma's Chris Smalling. December 7th, a 41-year-old is arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offense. So if 2018 to 2019 campaign, this whole year was a roller coaster ride in terms of racism, you guys can expect what the future holds. Now, we all can speak about it, because I think Ian Wright yesterday or today, I think he shared his he raised his voice for Black Lives Matter. So he got a message on Instagram. He shared a fan who was racially abusing and calling him a raccoon. Ian Wright, our legend, he has scored so many goals for us, and there are certain fans who believe that he should be racially abused on a daily basis. These guys they undergo these kind of things on a daily basis. You can understand that they are top level footballers. They've scored so many goals for England. I don't know what else they have to do to prove their nationality or prove that they have enough. They've done enough for the country, or probably they're still doing. They do a lot of charity work. They're doing that. What else do they have to do in order to prove that? What will it take for the people? I ask all of you guys, what will it take for these kind of players to actually prove something?
I'll tell you what I think's happening. This new generation that are coming through, unlike the generation that I kind of, as a kid, they used to have signs on walls, KBW, painted in white. And I didn't know what KBW meant. And my mate in Highbury thought it stood for Christos Bon Went. And I went, what do you mean, Christos Bon? And we found out it meant Keep Britain White. And as I went through school, and I've phoned around before doing this podcast to some of my old mates from Highbury school days and so on, they don't remember a great deal of racism going on. Some of them, Terry is from British Guyana. He doesn't ever remember any. Norris, another friend of mine, he said you got it on the buses occasionally going back from school. You'd have somebody shout something. But I think what you're highlighting, IG, there, is that in the last, well, I don't know how many years, maybe 10 or 15 years, but it's certainly become much more prevalent. There is a move across Western Europe and across the United States where the sort of media, the press, and the TV and so on, they are trying to drive a wedge between people of different ethnicities, different colours, different creeds. There's probably lots of reasons behind that, but it is getting worse. And one of the delights of being a football supporter is that we can support our team and our guys, and we don't even notice. I mean, when I was preparing for this, I had to think hard about which of my schoolmates was black, because your mate is your mate. You don't necessarily notice that, and you have to go, which do I know that was black, or that guy was Indian and that guy was from here, But I do think it is on the up, and I think it's mainly the sort of press that I think they call it gaslighting, and they're telling people that you shouldn't accept it if you live in England. Well, if you grew up in London like I did, or any of the big places like Birmingham, Manchester, all your mates came from all around the world, and it never mattered. My parents were both Irish, so I've got white skin, which most Irish people do have. but nobody said, well, we're not going to play with you, you're Irish. And I wouldn't say to somebody, we're not going to play with you, you're black or Asian or something. But I think we're suffering now. I mean, football, thank God, is a bulwark against this. And yes, you will get for different clubs. I think the guy that sort of urinated on that plaque or statue was actually a Spurs supporter, wasn't he? But it could have been an Arsenal supporter. It's bad news, but we're reflecting what is going on in society, and they are trying to sort of drive a wedge between people and trying to point out that you're a different religion. You're Jewish or you're Christian or you're Muslim. And I've taught thousands of kids over the years and been a school kid myself. And the little ones don't notice. They just play. But it does creep in. I will admit, it does creep in about the ages of 10 and 11. It does start to creep in, and you hear kids using foul language and using racist language. Now, I don't think they're learning that in the school playground. I think they're listening to it on the streets and maybe from their parents, But kids don't notice.
I think you are right there, Terry. I think also from IG and Andrew as well, the fact that it does appear to be on the rise, and it's more of the reason why we have to face it head on. And Alex's video, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, said how it's about education, and I would add on to that the fact that it's about being responsible and being an example. And it's not easy if a youngster is with a particular bunch of kids, his age or maybe a bit older, and is goaded on to doing certain things. It takes a very strong character to stand up against that. If it's allowed in the schools, when I was in school, there was bullying. Bullying is pretty much a factor of life, and sometimes you can ride it out, and sometimes you have to make sure or hope that a teacher can stand in your corner as well. But it's down to the parents, and if the parents are of a certain mindset and they feel that what they say and what they do is correct, then the children is the offspring of that kind of mindset. So that's why it's very important to look at it in the face and to call it for what it is, and to if we have to re-educate. We've got some really good upstanding sports people that has shown that regardless of color, I'm human. But I think also that the flip side of it is the fact that some people can say what they want to say on platforms like this, if they're full of hate and they feel that person is not like them or can't be like them because of whatever kind of reasons. So pretty much that's the reason why we have to stamp out as soon as we can. What I'm going to do, I'm going to see if we can go into the chat and see if we have any questions to coming up. So here we go. We've got Stan the Man. Good morning, fan from Vancouver. Nice one, Stan. Hope you're doing well and you're keeping well out there. Stan the Man says Rocky. It must be one of his all-time favorites, as well as us as well. Okay, and there's a question. With there being a very large Asian Indian community in the UK, why do you think there are hardly no players from that group in British football? I'll throw that question out to whoever wants to answer that one.
Is it to do with the being allowed to play the football on the weekend with a lot of the youngsters because of the religion? I'm just asking. Because I've always been curious for myself, because are they? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. But I think certain cultures have a very strong presence in sport. I live in South Wales, and there isn't a place I go by where everyone's got a rugby ball rather than the football, but it's predominantly seems to be like a working class sport, whereas Alex would testify to this. When we used to play cricket, some of the teams that we played against were either very white, or there was a mixture, or they're Asian. So I think it depends where the sport's the strongest, depending on where it's been played. I'm not sure if. Sorry,
I'm just going to say, going up to Leicester once to see a friend, and we said we'd go over to the local park and kick some football. Brought the ball over. I was in my middle 20s, I guess, and the park was jam full of Asian kids playing cricket. And I thought, wow. And they said, do you want to play a game? And we all went, yeah, solid, we're in. But we're much better with a big ball. I think, yeah, there are certain cultures value certain sports. Obviously, in Wales, where you are, it's a big rugby community there. But yeah, lots of parts like Asia, Pakistan, India, all these places love cricket. But it is strange. You're right that there aren't more really well-known Asian soccer players. I guess they're all cricketers,
I think Terry is completely right. I think our country totally, for us, we give a lot of majority for cricket, and actually we ourselves are a very big cricket playing nation. But that does not, dissociate us from football. Actually, we watch EPL, we watch different parts of the world. I think there were players from Indian origin in the British football. There was Michael Chopra, if I remember. He used to play for Cardiff. And there was Danny Bath, who had an origin from Punjab. He used to play for Wolves, or is playing for Wolves. I don't remember. There are lots of people. They have come through the ranks, but I think it is a sort of a league which is actually embracing these kind of players. But I think it takes a different level of talent to actually break into these kind of leagues and tiers. Actually, in India, I'm not saying that the level is far off. It is quite evident on the rankings of FIFA. We are way far off. So it totally depends upon the quality that comes in. I think I don't think so. EPL is quite open to black players, and a lot of players, they have their associations as well. So I personally believe it totally depends upon the talent that comes out. So I think it totally depends the level of the player on what quality of level he's playing at.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't Hamza Chowdhury from the Asian origin as well, who plays for Leicester?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, thought so. He's a very good player.
And Son Heung-min, he's from Asia.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got another message. English Conversation Club. Good to see Raz presenting the Easy Talk. This is my first one, mate. So after this one,
hopefully not the last one.
That's appreciated. But I think just one other thing, actually, I'm going to add on to this. There's still this ongoing wager between Alex and myself about Guendouzi. And Guendouzi, I'm still hoping that Guendouzi is going to break his duck. But with about 7 or 8 matches to go with Arsenal, it does not seem that may be. So I'm going to see if I can do some kind of loophole to avoid the forfeit with Guendouzi not scoring. So anyway, so if we go into the chat again. Okay, so with English Conversation Club, what can social media platforms really do about racist tweets and messaging?
Nothing. It's a complete waste of time. They can ban you off the platform, and then the person will just go and set up another account straight away. The only thing they could possibly do is to literally track and block the actual IP address and take people's ID, so that you have to send in your passport, and proof of address and everything before you can actually set an account up in the first place. But I've just been having a conversation on Twitter earlier on today about this, and I was commented on the Ian Wright post that IG mentioned earlier, and it's disgraceful post. It just makes me feel sick, and I can't understand that people just aren't getting taken through the courts for this type of behaviour. It's a criminal offence, and nothing happens, and it drives me mad. That because this is what I mentioned, and you know, I was having a conversation with a black guy on Twitter about it, and he said, "Well, it's down to Twitter to police themselves." I said, "Well, that's fair enough, but that's not enough, is it? They need to be taught a lesson, and it's going to have to take a few people to get dragged through the courts, flung in a cell for doing what they're doing, for people to actually sit back and take notice and think, actually, I better be a bit more careful here." Because the worry I've got is that it is so socially ingrained within certain families, and it's part. You mentioned it earlier, Tel, about, you know, it coming from the parents, because kids and little children, they play with whoever they want. They don't notice colour. It doesn't matter to them. So where do they get that behaviour from? It's only going to come from either their parents or the parents of their friends, and they'll get to learn about it that way because they don't know about it any other way. So it's got to come from somewhere, and it's so socially ingrained with some families that they're not going to change. No matter what you educate them with, they're not going to change. If you get them at the right age, the young people, then great. But otherwise, they've got to be educated whilst they're at school and they're very, very young, so that they grow up knowing that there's no difference, and then they will pass that on to their children, and they will pass it on to their children. So it's got to be taught in schools from now, you know, from preschool age. And if their parent, you know, that little children are taught very, you know, about some quite advanced things at a young age now, about being careful online, and you know, not to sort of go off with other people, and what can actually tell them, you know, what can happen, and about being abducted and stuff like that, and being groomed online, and so on and so forth. They're being taught some quite advanced stuff. So why don't they teach them more about racism at that age as well, to say that it's wrong? And if any adults start talking to them in a racist way, then that is wrong.
I can come in there now, because as a person who does teach and has taught for many decades, we do the online courses every term about how to spot racist remarks and how to sort of deal with it. And
from what age group, can I ask? What age group?
Well, I mostly teach primary, but I have taught quite a bit secondary as part of my role as an advisor, and I teach African drumming, which might be seen as a very black activity, but of course white kids absolutely love it, you know. But we are cognizant of it, and we do our best. But you know what? It depends. If you're in a tricky part of London, I mean, I used to teach not far from King's Cross, and if you're in any way different from the other people on your estate, whether you've got black skin, brown skin, we had one family, and it was awful what happened to them. The mum was a Cockney, but the dad came from Middlesbrough, just outside Middlesbrough, and his kids had northern accents, Durham type accents, and they all had bright red hair, white skin, and freckles, and they stood out, and they were a bit naive. There was about 3 or 4 of them, and the rest of the estate was basically white. Anyway, one day I walked into school. They said, "Do you know what's happened to that family?" I said, "No." They said, the local people burnt their flat out. They burnt the flat out because they didn't conform to the stereotype of the Cockney. Yeah. So basically, these people that are doing this racism stuff, they will look for something about you that makes you different, that makes you not one of us. Now, we know when we pull on an Arsenal top and we go down the Arsenal, we don't care what colour people are, what their ethnicity is, what their religion is. But there are people who, I personally think, if you're going to get deep about it, I think it's people who feel they've failed. I came from a very working class background, and I avoided the feeling of failure by working very, very hard. But if you feel you've failed and you haven't got a very good job and there's not a lot of money coming in and you're under all kinds of stress and pressure, then if somebody says to you, do you know why you're in that state? Do you know why you can't find a good job? It's because of that bloke over there. Whoa, where's he come from? And it could be Durham.
You're the one who's working much harder than you, basically. Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean, but that's it's nothing to do with anything apart from the fact that they're willing to work hard and do work harder than the people that think they should just get it all on the plate. And you're right, but.
Okay, guys, there is some more questions coming in.
I must add, not the school I'm working at now, but I worked at a school near Caledonian Road, King's Cross, for a long time. And there were an awful lot of taking and driving aways of mopeds, TDAs. And anyway, the police set up a kind of nondescript white van with blacked out windows, and they left a moped just outside the van, with the keys in the ignition, and the police officer went back into the van to start the sort of monitoring camera rolling, and he turned his back and pressed whatever buttons he had, and when he turned round, bike gone. They had it away straight away.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slow the conversation down a bit.
Unfortunately, I'm listening.
Can anyone hear me?
There were good people there. Where I grew up, and Chris White.
I don't know how comes he can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Hey, who can't hear?
Anyone can hear me? I'm going to cut in.
He's gone.
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so
yeah. So
one other thing, I'm just going to do a little.
I said a bit earlier, it is the sort of
Terry. Tell. I'm just going to cut in and just say, anyone who's literally just coming into the chat, this is the Easy Talk. It's an Easy Talk special. It is Black Lives Matter. We have got in the house, we've got El Tel, who wouldn't let me get a word in edgeways. We have got IG in the house as well. The man, the ministry.
It's that family from Cal.
And we also got Andrew, the Gooner, Hinkley Gooner, beg your pardon, Hinkley Gooner. Okay, so this is me trying to get some kind of rein on proceedings, because we have got a few more questions and statements. We'll go into the chat once more to see if there are any more questions from our listeners, our viewers from over the road. But if there isn't, there is. Here we go. We've got another statement from English Conversation Club. You see in certain leagues, black and ethnic footballers suffering racism. Unless FIFA and UEFA take it serious, nothing will change. Let's see if there's anything else. English Guna has to start from the top. Yes, it does. But then if a certain person has been taking a lot of money, then that will get put to one side. I used to see NF sprayed on walls back in the late 70s, Stan the Man has mentioned. And yeah, I used to see the same thing as well. This is from the Mr. Arsenal podcast. Hey, everybody, hope all are okay this Friday evening. Yes, we hope that you're okay as well too, Mr. Arsenal podcast. Is there any more? Yeah, Stan also puts in, but on the flip side, Love Thy Neighbours was a must-watch in our house. It was funny, but I learned a lot from watching that show. Yes, there was a lot of stereotypical remarks from both sides, and it was also we watched that in our household as well, because it's one of those programs that you couldn't miss, and you would say the same things to your friends when you go back to school. Oh, and again, Stan the Man says, I also remember my Jamaican nan constantly going on about Enoch Powell. Remember him? Yes, the old Rivers of Blood speech from the early 60s. Okay. Oh, and English Conversation Club says, don't you just love IG, the Minister of Information? There we go. So much love to you there, IG, as always. Okay, so the next segment question here is about race relations in football here and in the US. How do you feel that after what happened in the US and what's happening in this country, that we are at this pivotal point in our history now? how we're going to start changing things. I'll put that question to IG. IG, what do you think about race relations in football?
Well, I think there's one beautiful thing which is happening, which also exists in terms of the players actually having their own association, the PFA. The black MLS players have formed a coalition to combat racism in soccer across US and Canada. They've done recently because more than 70 black Major League Soccer players have formed the Black Players Coalition. Now, what they've done is, they have so they actually address all the racial inequalities happening in the MLS, in the US as well as in Canada. So this is really good, having an association where at least if a single black player is cornered somewhere else, at least he has someone to look after, to support. So these things you can also see in the PFA as well, because the whole idea of having the Black Lives Matter black hoodie in our game, in our practice games, it came from the players themselves, which Mikel Arteta approved. So we understand the players who are playing, they have all the stress of actually representing the club themselves, because whenever they are on the pitch, the international clubs, the national managers, they are also watching for them, in terms of Euro or any other competition. So these guys already have those amount of stress, in terms of not letting the fans down. And on top of that, thank God, at least when they're playing behind closed doors, these things won't happen. But imagine these kind of fans who are racially abusing them when they're playing. It takes a big toll. And I think as players, the players are actually coming together. These things are actually bringing these all the players together, and which is really great to see.
Yeah.
When we actually see Granit Xhaka's incident which happened,
Mm.
where he showed the finger to the crowd, you know we all understand, he should not have done that. But the reason why he did it, all the social media abuse to his wife, to his unborn kid, to him, Squadron Mustafi, he is in a recent times, him and Mesut Ozil are the most racially abused people on social media. Not
Yeah.
racially, they are abused in a lot of ways. Squadron Mustafi, for any mistake they do on the pitch, they know that there are going to be somewhere around 200,000 tweets out there, or in their DMs. Those many people they have to block. So it
But
is happening everywhere.
I remember saying once upon a time that anyone who who abuses a player on social media, it's an easy hit, because you can, like, as Andrew had alluded to, you can have a fake account, and once that gets discovered, you can set up another one. Um, there's no real accountability from the user, as it were, or the provider. Everyone would say, like, freedom of speech and everything else. You've got a right to. Even some fans, when they're in the stands, will say that they feel they've got a right to abuse a player, because they've paid entrance to support the team. So it's pretty much a mindset that we have to try and change, that kind of understanding that, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. What I saw on Wednesday, I was very upset and angry. And if I was in the terraces, I probably would have booed or would have been very angry at certain players. But there comes a time now where we have to start understanding that what we say carries a lot more weight, because, of course, anyone would remember, sticks and stones, remember, can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. But now it is the word. It's the word that carries a lot of weight, and it can, hurt people in ways that, we wouldn't have appreciated if somebody was to say the same things to us.
It does, because Maurizio Sarri actually spoke about hiring a sports psychologist. Every team has their sports psychologist, where the players actually consult their psychologist, just so that their mentality is not, you never know. These guys are actually getting into the practice pitch. When they got out of the practice pitch, they look into Twitter, they go into social media, they get certain abuse. You don't understand that mindset. Not everyone has a bulletproof mindset as Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. There are certain things where the players actually cry out. You never know the
Yeah.
pain, and that's the whole reason why they actually have to hire a sports psychologist, which generally you would need if you have a very strong mentality kind of a player
Mm.
in your team. But you need that, because that is also an important aspect, and that is the biggest reasons why all the team in Europe actually invest their money in a sports psychologist as well. So this has to stop.
Okay. I wanted to go into one last question, but I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to pretty much get your thoughts on our next game, which is going to be happening on Saturday, i.e. tomorrow, against Brighton. So if we just go into like a preview prediction, how's it pretty much everyone feeling after what happened on Wednesday, and how optimistic are you with the fact that we're going to see if we can turn this around for Saturday? So I'll ask Andrew first, and then we go into LTEL straight after.
Well, I was really confident about Wednesday that not of a win, but I thought we might get away with the draw. I didn't think we were going to get beaten, but it was realistically, it was more sort of a fantasy than anything else. I wasn't too concerned, believe it or not, about Wednesday, apart from one person having an absolute shocker, which just either side of half time, it was obviously David Luiz 2, Arsenal 0, wasn't it? But basically, that's what happened. But apart from that, I think that we've got some good green shoots, and it gives us a bit of a head start, really, for Brighton. So I'm a lot more confident for Brighton, although they beat us earlier in the season, but it wasn't under Mikel Arteta. So I just really hope that he carries on playing and persisting with a lot of the young players that are coming through, because I think they're very exciting and they have to get games in order to get better. And I can see us getting a win, but I don't think it's going to be a comfortable win, should I say. But
Okay.
I can see 2-0, 2-1. And I think that a lot of people have made a lot out of Pepe not playing. I think that with a game every 3 days, you've got to use rotation. So I think that was probably done because of that. I can see Martinelli and Pepe starting, which would be quite exciting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I don't think that we should read too much into losing 3-0 away to Man City, who won 3 major competitions last year, and man for man, every single player that they've got is better than our players. So I think we can read too much into it sometimes.
Okay, if I can direct the question to LTEL, what do you reckon, Tel? Do you reckon we're going to be more optimistic against Brighton, or it's going to be more of the same?
He can't hear you for some reason.
Tel, you can't hear me.
No.
I think you might have muted.
Yeah.
Terry.
I'm here, but I can't.
Can you hear me?
Raz.
Yeah, I don't know what. What's your thoughts on the Brighton game, Terry?
Oh well, do you know what? From what I've read, I know a lot more about City, and I could see. I thought it would be a defeat by 4 goals instead of 3. From what I've read about Brighton, they are a good team. He's obviously held back Pepe and Martinelli for this. So if we get a draw, I'll be very happy.
Cool.
That's. I mean, at the moment, our defence is in tatters, really, and Mustafi isn't up to scratch. Bellerin has gone backwards. Tierney's okay, and we got a cracking goalie, but
yeah, he saved us.
The rest of it are very substandard, and it doesn't mean I don't want Arsenal to win, and I'll be supporting them and hoping, but long term we're on a downward slide, and I just hope Arteta stays long enough. I think he's got the skill to turn it round, but he will need players, and we can promote some of the youth players, Smith Rowe and so on. But as to whether we're going to win tomorrow, I've no idea. But I really hope Arsenal do.
Yeah.
Okay. IG prediction.
I can't hear Raz. I don't know what's going on there.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I think the Man City game gave a lot of insights into where Arsenal actually is heading. I think a good organization for the first 30 minutes until Pablo Mari's injury. When David Luiz came, the formation was, it was in tatters. I saw the difference. So that's the whole reason why Mikel Arteta did not want him to start. He said it after the game as well, that the biggest reason why Ozil did not start and Luis did not start is because he thought that they were not the best kind of players to come on the pitch against City. Now the biggest problem against City, which is actually quite different into the way we actually came across against Everton, is the creativity. Now against Everton, when we actually went back, we actually sorted our heads out. Even though we were behind, we created from the wings. We did a lot from the wings, so that was not seen. So it was pretty much clear against Manchester City we were going to sit back, just like Wolves, just like Newcastle, any other mid-table or low-table team. Against City, you sit back and on the counter. The problem is Kieran Tierney looks really good defending. Bellerin had a very good game in terms of defending, but going forward he was pathetic. He was caught out of position a lot of times. It was a big burden for Mustafi to cover for him, which I saw. But the problem is Kieran Tierney, in terms of creativity, could not release Aubameyang in one important position where he was quite better ahead against Kyle Walker. That could have been a very decisive moment. We could have had a goal. We did not, because we were forced into substitutions. That those two were not expected earlier in the first half itself. So those are the reasons why we lost it. Those are the main reasons why Mikel Arteta's tactics had to be changed. That actually, if you got Chaka out, Ceballos came in. It was pretty decent still. But when it was Mari, when you got him out, David Luiz is competing for the most amount of assists for the opposition club. So I think when that happens, it's really bad. But against the game against Brighton, I think it will be similar to like Everton or a West Ham game. We may have problems in terms of creating chances if we play a similar kind of role, but I think it will be more of an attacking options. Arteta will go to. So I think I may see Ozil here. I may see, because in terms of creativity, without Ozil, we have been. It's really sad to say, but everything has to be coming from the wings itself. Either Saka or Pepe, we were quite dependent on. So I expect a win. Either it could be 3-1 victory or a 2-0 victory, but it's hard to tell if we can keep a clean sheet because Rob Holding little shaky.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that I'm hoping for an Arsenal win. I don't care in what shape or manner or form it comes in. I just want us to win because we've been a bit of a down at this moment in time. And I'm also going to just have to wrap it up. I'm going to thank my guests for coming on my first hosting the podcast. Say thanks very much to Andrew Hinckley-Guna. Thanks very much for turning up. I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
As
You
always,
did really well.
I will tell the godfather of the dark arts. Thank you very much. You probably can't hear me still, but that's okay. It's at my end. And Indian IG, I always call you IG, I always call you Indian IG, but it's IG, the Ministry of Information. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over to IG to sound us out. IG, if you will.
Sure, I'll do that. If you've been wondering what you'll be watching, you've been watching Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. Peace out.